Some of you guys have been clicking on my 100% proof of God thumbnails, and then after watching the video, you've complained and whined a little bit about, oh, but you never actually gave us the proof. Well, today is the day of reckoning. Here's the proof. How do we know God exists? Because you believe in absolute truth. And it's really not hard after that, because the scriptures teach us that Jesus is God and that Jesus is the truth. And since you believe in absolute truth, it's easy to make the connection that Jesus is God. Now, I already know where you're going to go with this. I know what's going on in your mind. You're like, no, I don't believe in absolute truth. Well, here's what that points out. That in itself is a corrective response, which takes us into another matter. When you try to correct someone, you are showing that you believe in right and wrong on top of objective truth. Because I have made a statement of, you believe in absolute truth, and you're like, no, I don't, and that is a corrective measure, you are now showing that you believe there is a right and wrong to abiding by or believing in or knowing about or understanding the nature and reality of truth. But there's more than that. Because you have snapped into this autocorrect mode, you now show another capacity, which is that you believe to a degree that you have the ability to judge between right and wrong. Now, when you start getting all this and it starts coming together, there is just no escape from the truth of this. Now, let me take you this direction. So, with your rock bottom beliefs, the foundational thoughts in your mind, you never build foundational thoughts off of falsities. You never build them off of things that you do not consider to be true. It would be like building a house of cards, and you don't want to do that mentally, and you will not do that mentally. What do we do with broken thoughts? We replace them. So, for instance, if you learned that, let's say someone taught you that the square root of 5 is 1, you might actually proceed on that truth for a while and begin to build your mathematical understanding off of it. But as soon as you found out that the square root of 5 is not 1, you would erase it from your foundation, and you'd start cleaning up a little bit and reassessing, and we're like, well, hey, I need to make sure my foundational understanding of this is correct, because I don't want to build a broken thought empire. I don't want to run around with broken logic. And so we actually replace our beliefs with functional thoughts that we can trust. This shows another layer of our humanity. We actually have to be emotionally comfortable with the thoughts that are lodged within us. We want to make peace with these thoughts. And so if I find out that one of my thoughts is broken, I try to get rid of it, and then I want to replace it. Now, you might not be able to replace the thought. So, for instance, if you don't know that the square root of 5 is such and such, and I don't know, if you don't know what that is, then you cannot replace it in your mind, but you will just label it as a falsity. Hey, I'm not going to depend on that anymore. But anything that you put in your foundational layers of thought, you are at least going to think that they are true. And that is so you can put your belief into them. Now, some people try to play word games here and say confidence, but that has been well rebuked. It is faith in these bedrock thoughts or these bedrock facts about life. So when I stated that you believe in absolute truth and you say, no, I don't, you might believe something like, the truth is relative, which would be your absolute bedrock level truth. But you see where this is going. That now becomes your truth that you try to operate by. But it's not just your truth, since you are trying to correct others with it and you are judging that you are doing this correctly. You believe there is a universal, objective, real truth, that all truth is relative, that has to be spread far and wide, which is just broken thinking. It hasn't thought deeply enough upon this. It hasn't drilled down enough to find out that you are just relabeling what you actually believe truth. And so if you've ever stated something like, or believed, or been taught that there is no right and wrong, you have put that as your bedrock truth, maybe morally speaking. You put that as your bedrock truth, but that is your right belief. This isn't too hard to follow. What's really interesting with this is any resistance to this is a corrective resistance and is an attempt to replace maybe my belief systems on this. So some of you are going to jump into the comments and you're immediately going to go, all of this is wrong and it's wrong for these reasons, which would prove that you believe there needs to be better bedrock truths in my belief system and that they're of some kind of universal quality or nature so that you need to actually express them to me and get my belief system right. But even because I have stated it this way, some of you now will not comment because you don't want me to be right and you to be wrong, which further reinforces the concept that there is absolute right and wrong and bedrock truth. I'm sorry, this is an inescapable reality that you live in. Now, I want to try to give a little more understanding to this invisible reality of truth. Do you realize that we use different words for the exact same thing? So I might call something a chair, and you might call it a seat, but we are both talking about a place to sit. Now, some of you immediately going to start analyzing this like, whoa, yeah, but we have been taught that both of these words mean the same thing. Correct. But who was it that ever taught what a seat was with different words, just hoping that the person would understand that sound A doesn't conflict with and isn't opposite to sound B, even though sound A sounds nothing like sound B to describe the object in question? Further, this gets even more complicated when we begin to talk about concepts that we don't even know if the person has ever rightly experienced or not. I might say I like something. Another person might say they cherish something in this conversation, and we both yet know the other person is talking about love or a degree of love. And how did we apprehend what the truth was as we were conversing? As we advance this thought experiment, imagine a man in Germany who sees a Cocker Spaniel and a Pit Bull and a German Shepherd, and he speaks in German. And then you have a man in China who sees a Labradoodle, a Jack Russell, and a Doberman Pinscher. And these two men have unique words for these animals. And then they have a general word, whatever dog is in each language. And so they have some sort of mental picture of these different dogs, and they have different language structure for both, in both cultures. And you can bring both of these men into a room in America and show them still another breed of dog that is not the same size, that does not have the same hair as any previously mentioned, does not have the same color that any as previously mentioned. And both of them somehow or another still know that the animal that's standing in front of them is a dog because there was some kind of invisible truth to apprehend. What about when it gets into even more complex thoughts, where we could use lots of sentences to describe something, maybe even paragraphs, maybe even long extended examples, never use the same terminology, but yet both understand that we were talking about a concept like ownership. Don't underthink this, think through it. So all of this points to the fact that truth is the invisible reality that we absolutely believe in, that we operate underneath, that we believe others absolutely grasp and understand, and that somehow or another the truth conveys itself in and through communication. All of this is enough proof, 100% proof and 100% evidence to show you that God exists. And I'm here to tell you that He loves you and He's offering you salvation through Jesus Christ, His Son.